Good day and welcome to the Young People Business-Inspired Federal Election Forum for the ridings of Chatham-Kent-Leamington and Lambton-Kent-Middlesex, the two ridings representing Chatham-Kent. I'll be your host today. My name is Craig Quagliato. I'm a volunteer with the Y Connect Group, Director of the Chatham-Kent Chamber of Commerce, and Chartered Accountant at Baker Tilly LLP in Chatham. With the Chatham-Kent Chamber of Commerce having a long history of hosting election forums, this event is delivered with a platform respecting pandemic rules. Today's forum is presented by the Y Connect Group in collaboration with the Chatham-Kent to the Power of Young People Advisory Group and in partnership with Your TV. The live audience has been restricted to the organizers and media members, and candidate invitations to the forum followed the guidelines and criteria of the Leaders Debate Commission. With us, we have from the Chatham-Kent-Leamington riding, from the Progressive Conservative Party, or the PC Party, Dave Epp. Conservative Party. From the New Democratic Party, Dan Jelanis. From the Liberal Party, Greg Hetherington. From the Lambton-Kent-Middlesex riding, from the New Democratic Party, Jason Henry, and from the Green Party, Jeremy Hull. Lambton-Kent-Middlesex Liberal Party candidate, Dr. Sudit Ramade, and Progressive Conservative Party candidate, Leanne Rood, have declined our invitation. Our format will be as follows. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes at the start of the program for an introduction and another 1 minute at the end to summarize. The remainder of the time will be available for questions to the candidates. Questions being posed were pre-submitted by open call and will be presented by volunteers with the Chatham-Kent Chamber of Commerce and organizing groups. Each candidate will be answering all questions posed. We will now begin with opening comments, and we will start with Dan Jelanis.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all, and thank you to all the people that organized this and invited us here to express our views and our platforms. As I said, my name is Dan Jelanis. I live in Wheelie, Ontario. I've lived and worked in this riding for the last 27 years. I've been involved in many community activities, from coaching hockey, baseball, and lacrosse to all kinds of different activities. Having lived in this riding, I've seen the problems that exist. 27 years has shown me this riding has not been progressive enough, and we've been kind of stagnant. And I think we need more activity in this riding, especially under the circumstances with COVID-19. Recovery is going to be very important, and to be successful in recovery, we have to make sure that our base is solid and our different avenues are opened up so that they can be expanded. I really believe that under the Liberal and the Conservative governments for the last few years, nothing has really taken place in this riding. It's been too quiet. I believe that working together with all communities and all small businesses, then what we have to do is we have to get together, talk about it, and as your representative, listen to what the people have to say. It's very important that we do that so that we have a foothold on making this a successful community. I just want to thank again everyone, and hopefully we'll do well on this, and we'll get things going in this riding. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan. Next, Dave Epp from the PC Party.
Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you're watching this. I do also want to add my thanks to the Chamber for, again, hosting this event. The majority of Canadians aren't happy that we're here this morning debating, because the majority of Canadians don't want an election now. I'd be interested if my NDP and Green colleagues agree. Sadly, even though we are in a minority to Parliament now for almost 2 years, we're also in the middle of a fourth wave of a pandemic. in the worst economic situation since the Great Depression, even worse than the 2007-2008 recession. So this election is not based on the necessity or a non-confidence vote that carried, but rather it's based on opportunism at a time when we should be focused on opportunity for Canadians. Pre-pandemic, under 5 years of Liberal government, while the world was in a generally robust economy, our own economy here in Canada was only growing at 1.6%, and we were still being saddled, if you'll recall, with $30 billion deficits. Now, with the massive deficits leading to record debt over the past 18 months, we need to get economic growth rates above 3% or face higher taxes and or reduce services, which none of us want. We need to stimulate paychecks, not continue to print money and pay people to stay home. Justin Trudeau has created this twin simultaneous realities of high unemployment, the second highest in the G7, and our employers not being able to find enough workers. As Conservatives, we have a plan. Canada's recovery plan based on 5 pillars, and you'll hear more about that as we go through this morning and through the coming days. Conservatives got us out of the last global recession to lead the G7, and we can do it again. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Next, from the Liberal Party, Greg Hetherington.
Thank you very much. And thanks to the Chamber for this opportunity today. We as Canadians and in Chatham-Kent-Leamington are at a pivotal point of our community and our country. Our government set forth a plan at the beginning of the pandemic to keep you safe and help you survive through the pandemic. We became a world leader in acquiring vaccines and getting them into Canadians quickly and effectively. Yet, every time we came forward with a plan of moving forward, the Conservative Party stopped us or tried to. This election, you have a chance to elect a government with a plan to keep us safe and moving forward, open up the economy, and get us back to work and back to the Canada that we all want and need. I was born on a farm, learned a strong work ethic and compassion for my neighbors and my community. I've spent the last 35 years helping our riding when it was needed, helping community groups, schools, churches, organizations, businesses, and help them, and I will continue doing that. Our Liberal plan does just that, help seniors, children, families, small businesses. We want better childcare. We want better health care for our communities. And it's easy to talk about a plan, but my track record shows I will step up. I've been a part of the hospital board for the last 20 years, the Children's Treatment Center for the last 10. I want better for this community, and I won't just talk about it, I'll do it. We need an MP that shows up in every town, shows up in every community, steps up in a time of need and a time of leadership. This election is important. It gives you a chance to make a local change. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. From the Green Party, Jeremy Hull.
Good morning. My name's Jeremy Hull. I'm the representative for the Green Party in Lambton-Kent-Middlesex. I guess for those who don't know me, I've been a firefighter for 10 years, a municipal worker for 15. So understanding community problems and finding solutions is what I do. It's what I've done for 15 years. I've been a voice for our community as it is now, and I want to continue that on a bigger scale. Canada's been in a real bad place with COVID, and it's time for a new recovery. And everybody we've gone to talk to wants a new recovery, a new Canada. And it's time for a change, and a green change is what it is now, and a green recovery. So, thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Next, Jason Henry, NDP.
Bonjour. Bajikini Indigenous cause Mong and Dodem, Kikonong Ajo Dana and Donjaba, Nasinga Egua and Dijimadeo, Ojibwe, Bodawadami, Odawa, Anishinaabe, and Dao. Good morning, everyone, or whatever time of the day it is you're watching this airing. My name is Jason Henry, and what I've just shared is my traditional greeting in the Anishinaabe language. I am currently the elected chief at the Chippewas of Kettle and Stony Point, and I am your candidate for Lambton-Kent-Middlesex for the NDP. I didn't really come here to talk about promises because, as Canadians and Lambton-Kent-Middlesex, we're tired of empty promises. We're tired of people focusing on things that we can't deliver. And it's been too much of that. Promises made by big parties with big ideas without the follow-through. And that's why myself, as an Indigenous leader in an elected position, made the choice to step away from that position, enter into a system that I think needed, I know that it needed a new perspective. A perspective from someone that's accustomed to having to fight from the outside in to make sure that the people that I have previously served and still currently serve get what they need. And those are dignified, basic human needs. We need housing. We need clean drinking water. We need accessible jobs, long-term care, pharmacare. What we need is people in leadership that are focused on people, not on big businesses, not on corporations, and not on power brokering and power mongering. Chimigwech, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Henry. We'll start the question period now. I'll ask the first question. Just a reminder to candidates to please limit your response to 1 minute. First question. If you and your party are elected, what initiative or issue will you be taking on as a priority undertaking for Chatham-Kent? We'll start with Dave Epp.
Thanks for the question. Foremost, well, there's actually two, so I might be moderating here. Obviously, keeping Canadians safe in the pandemic is a priority, but we've got to focus ahead and look ahead at Canada's recovery. We've put it out there since the second day of the campaign, Canada's recovery plan, Canada's economic plan based on 5 pillars. You know, we need to get our economy rolling. We've incurred massive amounts of debts, and so Canadians need to be paid to work, paychecks, not being paid to stay at home. We'll re-energize our small businesses and our small towns and begin to get our financial house in order. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Next, Mr. Hall.
I think one of our first priorities should be on housing and homeless. Just down the road from us, there's 250 vacant apartments sitting there. There is no money to retrofit these places for people to move in, and that is a big loss to our community. That's 250 beds that we can put people into at affordable pricing. We need to get some federal money down to these people and get people into houses, so that way they have somewhere safe to go at nighttime.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jelinas.
One of the first items that has to be approached for good recovery is infrastructure. Infrastructure includes housing, childcare, pharmacare, also economic development. We have to address these items to have a successful recovery after this pandemic. One of the problems we have is pharmacare. People have to be healthy. They have to have access to medication. 93% believe that that's important for us. So with pharmacare, that has been supported by the Liberals since 2016, but voted against just last February, we have to be able to get that established and make our people healthy. A healthy society will come out of this recovery successfully.
Thanks, Dan. Next, Jason Henry.
Well, I can't argue with the aforementioned points that the other parties will be focusing on, but I think it fails us as Canadians to not put the environment at the forefront of all of our decision-making going forward. If the last 18 months has taught us anything, we have to work together. We work together to survive the pandemic. We also have to work together in saving our environment. Mental health and addictions are also locally what we need to focus on, but the environment must be our priority. Otherwise, we are doomed to catastrophic failure. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Greg Hetherington.
Thanks. I think there's 5 things: our climate, our health, our hospital, our housing, and jobs in moving forward. Let's look locally into the Chatham-Kent-Leamington riding. First of all, I want to ensure that Enbridge continues to do good work in this community, and I like the way that they're transitioning when it comes to our power supplies and moving on to solar. I want to make sure our hospitals stay vibrant and our health care is solid, and thus the reason why I've been on the hospital board for 20 years. We also have a housing issue in this community. People can't afford to buy their first home, and we have those that are in apartments that are struggling to pay rent. We need to get jobs, and jobs can be created thanks to people like Tech Savvy, who are going forward with fiber internet, and we need cheaper internet, and I like their passion to make sure that Canadians will also have cheaper internet so you can work from home. Just some of the things that we need more right here in Chatham-Kent-Leamington.
Thanks, Greg. For our next question, I'd like to welcome Sarah Molnar.
Good morning, everyone. If you were elected, but your party is not, as a member of the opposition, what actions and initiatives are you willing to step up to for the betterment of Chatham-Kent?
I think I'm first, based on the sheet in front of me. Well, I mean, if you take a look at the last government we had, and the NDP had to work in the middle and make sure that government worked for Canadians, and that's what we're committed to doing once again. Locally, I'd like to focus on every child matters, and that's really what's driven me to be here, and that's extremely important for this riding, and that's what I would like to work on. That's what I'm committed to working on, as well as working for each and every member of this riding. But what the discovery of the 215 children has showed us is that we have to have Indigenous voices standing up and fighting for truth and reconciliation. That is where my focus would be, but also with working with other leaders, local municipal leaders, and provincial leaders to make sure that our needs are being met in Chatham-Kent-Middlesex.
Thanks, Jason. Next, Mr. Jelenis.
Based on the polls, based on the numbers that are coming out, we're going to end up with a minority government. So it's a matter of which government is going to hold the minority position, but more importantly, who's going to have the balance of power. Under a Liberal minority, the NDP would support the Liberals, and we would have the balance of power to be able to implement the programs that we promise in this election. Farmer care is very important. I've talked about that. We've had the chance for it, but it was turned down by the Liberals. Now with the balance of power, we'll be able to implement these programs and force the Liberals into agreeing to it. It would work the same way with the Conservatives. Jai Singh has already said that he would support Mr. O'Toole. So there's balance of power gets the job done, and everyone knows that a minority government makes Canada successful.
Thanks, Dan. Next, Mr. Hetherington.
Well, I'm scared. If there's a Conservative government and we have a government that has no plan for climate change, we're in a lot of trouble. It is the story of the century, and we need to recognize it. And we will, as the Liberal Party, step up. We need a cleaner, greener future. We need to create jobs through climate. We need to cut pollution and penalize polluters. We need to head towards that net zero by 2050. And the Liberal government will do that because we have a plan when it comes to climate change, and not every party does. We need to recognize our climate. It has to be the #1 priority for us and for our grandchildren. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Next, Jeremy Hall.
Well, the first thing I would want to do is make sure every candidate, every leader's kept to their promises. For one, climate change, something that's got to be changed right away. We have to stay on top of this. The Green Party has a good plan for to fight climate change. And I think we should be the foremost leaders on that. So that's what I would do if I was elected and my party wasn't, is to make sure I stay on top of our leaders, that their promises are fulfilled, and that we do fight our climate change.
Thanks, Jeremy. Next, Dave Epp.
Conservative Party has a serious plan to address the environment, address climate change. It's in our plan that we published on the second day of the campaign, and it's also been independently verified by Navius Research, the same independent company that took a look and evaluated the Liberal plan. Ours has the bonus of meeting those same 2030 targets with economic development. Regarding what I would do here in the riding, whether I'm in opposition or whether I'm in government, I would be doing the very, very same thing. Two things in particular. Ag is a bedrock of our local economy. That's where I focused some of my work in the past 2 years on the Ag Committee. Certainly the Grocery Code of Conduct has come about from conservative pressure on this Liberal conduct, on this Liberal government. Internet, rural internet, this pandemic has showed how critical that is, not just for ag, because there's so much potential for that with agriculture, but for all of our businesses. The work we're moving forward, the pressure we've put on to get for Peely Island, the work we've done together with Tech Savvy will continue irrespective of what seat I hold in the next Parliament.
Thanks, Dave. For our next question, I'd like to welcome Marina McDonald.
Good morning, and thanks for being here. My young family is hoping to invest in an affordable house to call home. While I recognize some of the most significant barriers to building new housing supply are local and provincial regulations and red tape, how would your party address these impediments to the housing supply?
Thanks, Marina. First up, Mr. Hull.
Well, first of all, to get our housing prices down, we're going to have to, we're short on tradespeople. We've got to support our trade groups and get more qualified people out to our builders so they can build these houses faster and cheaper. There's definitely demand for product, and we've got to get rid of this red tape to get these products down to our contractors. And so that's all I've got.
Thank you, sir. Next, Dave Epp.
There are two basic drivers that are driving our housing crisis. The first is the basic laws of supply and demand. High prices come from a lack of supply with huge demand. The huge demand, particularly here locally, is a good thing, but we've got to increase that supply. And so from a federal government, certainly one thing we'll be doing is we'll be incenting communities, municipalities that do receive funding to increase densities where that's applicable, particularly close to public transit, which isn't as applicable to this riding. However, the federal government is the largest property owner in the country with 37,000 buildings. 15% of those will be put onto the market to take it to, immediately and increase the supply. Our cities, because of the pandemic and working from home, are hollowing out a little bit, and we expect office towers to be more readily available. We'll be incenting conversion of those to housing where that makes sense. Community trusts, similar to ecological trusts, are also another avenue that we can do it. And most importantly, mortgage rules. And in 1 minute, I can never get to the affordability and the inflation part that's driving the other part of this.
Thanks, Dave. Next, Jason Henry.
Well, it's a sad reality that we're in 2021 when we look at the fact that our children won't be able to buy their first homes very easily. So what we're going to have to do is invest in CMHC, extend mortgages to 30 years. We're going to have to look at other ways of preventing speculation and foreign buyers by putting in foreign buyers tax, stopping people from buying homes to speculate, and making sure that it's accessible for everyone. And that has to be a holistic approach. So it can't just be increasing taxes and investing heavily in housing. We also have to make sure that we do other things like pharmacare, healthcare, boosting EI, making sure that we have childcare so that we can have dual income families. It has to be a holistic approach. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Next, Greg Hetherington.
The Liberal plan has a home for everyone. We need to unlock home ownership for the middle class. From all the doors I've been knocking on, it is one of the biggest questions we get. How are my kids going to afford their first home? We've got a plan. $30,000 in a new tax-free first-time home owner's account to give them that opportunity to get into their first home. Building 1.4 million new homes to give you more opportunity to buy one. Protecting your rights and looking into the blind bidding process so that we can do it right for people who want to buy their first home. Helping renters become owners with a new rent-to-own program, helping them afford a down payment faster. And stopping outside foreign investors from capitalizing on our market and putting a 2-year waiting period before they can buy homes in our Chatham-Kent-Leamington area. That plan works to help young families get into homes faster. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Next, Dan Jelenas.
We've all heard the numbers, different numbers. We're talking 500,000 homes being built, affordable homes being built. low-income rent. You know, we're talking supplying up to $5,000 for rental support. Unfortunately, in today's world, we have a lot of young adults still living at home with their parents because they can't afford it. Supply and demand fits into this picture, but at the same time, it's the amount of people from offshore that are investing into homes, fixing them up and selling them at ridiculous prices. And the price of housing just keeps going up and up and up. We have to cut those tax loopholes where people take their money and they put it in offshore accounts, or they come into Canada and they build a house and then they turn it or take the income that they make and they bring it back to the country they're coming from. We want to put in a $1,500 tax credit for new home buyers. I think my time is up. Sorry.
Thanks, Dan. For our next question, I'd like to welcome Zara Belanger-Pepper.
Good morning, everyone. Canadian manufacturers are living the challenges of the global supply chain, notably highlighted by the COVID-19 pandemic. What measures would your party adopt to ensure Canadian manufacturers advance in the competitive global market, and what opportunities would they open for increasing domestic production?
Thanks, Zara. First, from the Liberal Party, Greg Hetherington.
I think one of the things we've learned the most from the pandemic is the opportunity that is out there for the entrepreneurs and small business owners. No longer do we have to work in Montreal or Toronto or Vancouver. With the power of internet, we're able to open up our own businesses in our own homes. And many people are seeing that opportunity with the cheaper rent and opportunities that lie right here in Chatham-Kent-Leamington. I think the opportunity of good internet allows us to be global. We can work across the world with good internet. And I like the initiative that we're doing to make sure that rural communities get better internet, that our communities, our cities are getting fiber. We need good internet, and that opportunity opens up the entire world for an economic driver and build forward and growth for our community right here in Chatham-Kent-Leamington and also in Canada. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Next, from the Green Party, Jeremy Hull.
I have to agree. I think now is the time for entrepreneurs. This is the time that they're going to shine. There's a good market now. Canada's recovery is going to be green, and there's new green jobs, new ways to manufacture, new ways to produce, new ways to do everything. I think now is the best time that we can shine on a global market. And stuff that we can produce the green way, an economical way, now is our time.
Thanks, Jeremy. Next, from the Conservative Party, Dave Epp.
Unleashing innovation. It's a complete separate section in our plan. We've got one of the most talented workforces, both here in Chatham-Kent and across this country. Where we need to focus on as a government is taking a look at our regulatory system. I'm not talking about scrapping regulation. I'm talking about taking a look, making it efficient, and updating everything from, I can go into Canada Grains Act, I can go to the recent decisions from the CRTC and how that's affecting us locally through Tech Savvy. We need to get our regulatory system so that our innovations, our entrepreneurs develop commercially all of their efforts here locally in Chatham-Kent-Leamington and across Canada. Too often, it's developed here in Canada and it's taken across the border because it's easier to bring to market there. We can do both. We can innovate, we can regulate, keep the public safe, everyone safe, and bring our growth rates up above 3% to restore our economy.
Thanks, Dave. Next, from the NDP, Dan Jelenas.
Small businesses and large businesses are intertwined. They each need each other. But to make it a successful business, you have to have a well-educated workforce. You have to have opportunity to learn, to be trained. Skilled trades have to have the opportunity to better themselves so that they can help create a better company. At the same time, we have a situation where people are unemployed today, but we have to make sure that people are given the opportunity to learn and to go into big businesses. The success of all business is the people that work there. So I think the training, the opportunities to learn more and more about the product is essential for a great recovery.
Thanks, Dan. Next, from the NDP, Jason Henry.
Well, it's been a while since the question was asked, and I don't think the answers have quite put the finger on what needs to happen. But realistically, we need to make sure that we stick together. And there are government roles in this, of course. We have to make sure that we're protecting manufacturing and that we're domesticating as much as we can here in Canada. The pandemic has showed us that we cannot always rely on our neighbors. And we have to make sure that we invest in business here. We have to make sure that we give small business owners and bigger manufacturing companies the supports they need. We need to have regulated 10 paid sick days. We have to make sure we have pharmacare, health care, affordable childcare so people can go to work. We have to make sure that it's more attractive for us to do business here in Canada. And as citizens, we've got to shop local. We have to make that choice ourselves. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. For our next question, I'd like to welcome Sarah Molnar.
Our members are fans of balanced budgets, yet recognize the pandemic has thrown a curveball to this concept. While investing in infrastructure, skills, competitive tax regimes, and building back our economy, how will you and your party prioritize taxing versus spending?
Thanks, Sarah. First, Jeremy Hull.
I guess it's we look to our leaders for this. We have to really budget, find out what taxes we've got to save, what money we've got to spend. We can't reduce services that we have now. We've got to keep our service in check, and we do have to work at getting our budget down. I guess that's about it.
Thanks, Jeremy. Next, Greg Hetherington.
Taxing versus spending. $10 a day childcare, I think, is a great step in the right direction to get us back to work and help our economy. When we look at Quebec with their $10 childcare program that they did, the government invested $100 into childcare. They got back $108 afterwards. It helped families, it boosted the economy, and got people working more. It's a big step. Child care is the first step that we need to move forward through the pandemic. It gives you an opportunity to step aside from taking care of your kids at home and instead getting out in the workforce, but seeing the opportunity of getting ahead because you can put money in your pocket. $10 child care, a step in the right direction for our economy.
Thanks, Greg. Next, Dan Jelenas.
All parties talk about what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. But the problem we have is that we have too many people, rich, big corporations, multi-billionaires, not paying their fair share in taxes. They take their profits, they take them, and they put them in offshore accounts. We have to close those loopholes. We have to make sure that money does not leave this country and that they're taxed on their profits. We could save $600 million a year by closing the loopholes and stopping the offshore deposits. At the same time, I lost my train of thought. I apologize. At the same time, we have to make sure that people have, or companies have, the money to be able to create new jobs and to be able to pay for pharmacare and all the other things that are being promised. We have to have money, but to do that, we have to have the proper taxes paid by all. Their fair share. It has to be a fair share.
Thanks, Dan. Next, Dave F.
Liberal misdirection when it comes to child care. $100 from the Quebec government goes to pay for $10 a day child care, which the talking point says $108 goes into the economy, not back to the Treasury. That $108 is taxed. If it's taxed at a 50% rate, then only the wealthy are getting the child care. If it's taxed at a low rate, which is where it should be going, then $75 to $80 must come from the Treasury. Again, liberal misdirection. Our plan is fully costed. We will bring our books back into balance within 10 years. We will not slash spending to start. We've got heavier spending than we normally would in the first 3 years because we've got to get our growth rates up over 3%, or we will face higher taxes and or cut services. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. For our next question, Morena McDonald.
May I answer?
Oh, sorry. Jason?
Okay. It was a spelling mistake in the sheet there. I see one name twice. No worries. It was an error. Anyway, with all due respect to my colleagues, I think we've actually failed to answer the question of how we'll balance taxation versus spending. And we have to have equitable taxation. We have to make sure that we're taxing the ultra-rich. We're taxing those that are making more money. And the pandemic has shown us that billionaire wealth has gone up exponentially. That's unfair to the basic working Canadian. We have to focus on our labor force. We have to make sure that we're giving the working person a chance to be able to survive. So investing in healthcare, pharmacare, and the $10 childcare, great idea. Wish I thought of it. I mean, those kind of things are very important for the working person. We cannot build an economy on the backs of the ones that are not wealthy. Thank you.
Sorry about that, Jason. No worries. Thanks for your answer. For our next question, Morena McDonald.
Employers of all sectors are possibly facing the greatest employee shortage of all time, while also having a range of positions ready to fill for all levels of education and skill. How will your party manage moving people back to work with recognizing the impact of Canada Recovery Benefits, or CERB, on the current workforce participation?
I think I've got that one. So to be successful in business, you need happy employees. And to keep employees happy, you have to give them the benefits that they need to live, and you have to have a good financial income paid to them. We want to increase the minimum wage from $15 to $20 an hour. We want to make sure that employees are given the opportunity to learn and to be able to help the company grow. To keep the employee, they're talking about low unemployment right now. The workforce is out there, but we have to get the workforce in a position to want to go back to work and be happy with what they're doing. And unfortunately, there's just too much going on in the world today that getting back to work is not their number one priority. So give them an incentive to get there, and you will be successful.
Thanks, Dan. Next, Conservative Party, Dave Epp.
Following up on Dan's point, yeah, there has to be a shift in philosophy from paying people to stay away from work to incenting employers and employees to do the work. So Canada's workers' benefit will be doubled when you're on your income tax. That averages out to about $1 an hour raise for all workers that are working. We've got to incent employment, incent work. Canada's Job Surge Plan. 25 to 50% of the salaries of net new hires to employers will be subsidized for 6 months. For small businesses, incenting them through Main Street business loans, a continuation of CEBA, except at higher levels. Canada's Investment Accelerator, where the first $25,000 is refundable back for small business. A 5% tax credit for capital investment in 2022 and 23, again, back into Main Street. 25% tax credit up to $100,000 for the investors to get our Main Street businesses back open. The philosophy change, workers to work, employers to employ, not stay home.
Thanks, Dave. Next, NDP, Jason Henry.
Thank you. As a small business owner myself, I've felt the struggle from the CERB, the payments, and the pandemic. And we have to make sure that we're putting money in the right places. We have to make sure that we're investing in EI. We have to have dollars for training and retraining employees. $10 childcare important, pharmacare to help with employees by giving employers a break in the spending they have to put out to employees. We also are going to put in grant programs for EI for new and rehires for small businesses and rent subsidies for small businesses as well. Those are investments made to small business owners to make sure that our main streets stay vibrant.
Thanks, Jason. Next, Liberal Party, Greg Hetherington.
The Liberal Party stepped up during the pandemic, assisting you in small businesses with a $60,000 loan. 40,000 of it had to be paid back. A 75% wage subsidy that helped small business through a tough time. We need to continue going forward, though. So we'll bring all businesses along to recovery, support them, and help them hire those that they need. A better employment insurance program, too, to help self-employed people, give workers more financial security. All key steps. We also need to boost the world-leading Canadian innovation and research that we're doing right now around the world. The Liberal Party will help small business and businesses do that. And we need to address the unrepresented groups and workforces that are out there now and build a more vibrant and diverse workforce. We need to create opportunities for everyone, and the Liberal Party will do that. Thanks.
Thanks, Greg. Next, Mr. Hall, Green Party.
So this is something we've got to invest in. We got to invest in our future. We got to invest in the trades, getting students an opportunity to get to these schools. Free tuition for post-secondary education was one of the Green Platform ideas. Students can move on and learn their studies, not worry about having a big deficit when they're done, money to repay. A guaranteed livable income was another source of a good idea. It gives everybody an opportunity to live a stable lifestyle and have a good life without the worry of, how do I get my next meal or how do I pay my rent at the end of the week?
Thanks, Jeremy. For our next question, Zara Belanger-Pepper.
Among businesses currently struggling, many small retailers, tourism-related enterprises, and restaurants are just short of closing their doors and turning in the keys, giving up their dreams and aspirations. What actions would your government implement to ensure these businesses receive meaningful support to ensure sustainability?
Thanks, Zara. First, Jeremy Hall.
Again, this is where we come back to our green plan of a guaranteed livable income. Businesses shouldn't have to struggle every day worrying about, when they're going to reopen or how they're going to get their staff, how they're going to pay their bills. A guaranteed livable income for all just sets a good example for Canadians. We want to live with dignity and we want to live good lives. We don't want no one left behind, and I think this is a good way to do that.
Thanks, Jeremy. Next, Mr. Henry.
I feel like a broken record here because all these things are so applicable. And when we look at pharmacare, to make sure that saves employers money. When we look at investments in EI, of course, that goes directly to employers and employees. Healthcare, $10 childcare. Those are all things that are extremely important. And those help balance the living wage, the increasing of the wage, minimum wage to $20 per hour. But what we need to do locally, I think, is listen to local leaders, listen to business leaders, work with the provincial government, and collectively work together to make a change that's sustainable. Recovery must also be sustainable. We cannot drive debt through the roof. We have to take a balanced, strategic approach. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Next, Greg Hetherington.
Referring back to local restaurants in our area, and I know they've been hit in a hard way. I respect those that pivoted through the pandemic and stepped up and got creative so that they could continue to make money through either a takeout program or delivery program. I respect that. They worked extremely hard, but we can do more. And we will move forward as the Liberal Party with our plan to unleash investments by improving the Canada Small Business Financing Program. That'll increase in annual financing by an estimated $560 million. That will support 2,900 additional small businesses out there. We also need to be diverse, and I like the fact that we've moved forward with $146 million to the Women Entrepreneurship Strategy. That's a step in the right direction to help mentor women into the workforce even more. Entrepreneurs are a key ingredient to this community thriving. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Next, Dan Jelinas.
Well, my thoughts go along with what Mr. Henry said. Obviously, we're the same party, but, you know, it's a two-way street. We have a platform that is beneficial not only to the average Canadian, but to small businesses and large businesses. Our platform is going to save all these companies a lot of money for items that they paid for in the past. Now, it goes back to what I talked about earlier. If you have a happy employee, you're going to have a successful company. And it's a two-way street. Companies have to understand that they have to make the environment better, and the employees have to understand that to keep the employees happy, you have to give them a fair wage. So with the policies that we're implementing in this election and promises we make that we do keep, we will make it much better for everyone in this riding across Canada.
Thanks, Dan. Next, Dave Epp.
Many of the items that I mentioned earlier to stimulate the economy apply just as equally here, especially with the CEBA loan for small businesses going up to $200,000 based on 4 months of pre-pandemic income, and that's forgivable up to 25% or up to $50,000. But specifically, we know some sectors have been hit harder than others. Airlines, we'll work with, as long as they're giving refunds, we'll work with them. But specifically to restaurants, in the Conservative plan, we've limited structural spending to get our houses in order, but we are spending in the short term. So some specific measures, GST holiday, the month of December, to help small business get going. To our restaurant trade, wine and dine. It's a bit gimmicky, it sounds, but you know, the slow days are Monday to Wednesday, waiving HST on those days. Their incentives, people respond to incentives. That's our goal, to get it kick-started, up and rolling. Again, all within the philosophy of getting people back to work, not staying home. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. For the next question, Sarah Molnar.
As a young working person, it is important to know, how does your party plan to pay for all the promises you are making? How would your party ensure financial responsibility so that my generation does not have to pay for eternity into their election promises?
Thanks, Sarah. First, Greg Hetherington.
Well, I think one of the first steps that we've got planned for the Liberal Party is starting to tax those that have benefited during the pandemic. Let's face it, there have been big businesses that have benefited throughout the pandemic. I was against the Walmarts being able to sell products that the small business owners out there didn't get the same equal opportunity to do. And I fought for that as a small business owner and was very vocal to it. We'll also penalize those or tax them when it comes to banks, because our banks benefited in a big way. And our plan is to make sure that banks will pay their fair share, because they made a lot of money through the pandemic. There was a lot of people hurt, but there were also others that benefited in a big way. And we need to make sure that they pay their fair share going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Next, Dan Jelinas.
All the promises that are being made and all the promises that have been made rely on our tax dollars. To implement any program in Canada, you have to have the revenue coming in from all of us. Unfortunately, the rich get richer and they don't pay their fair share of taxes. Loopholes that are brought in by the Liberal and the Conservatives, give you an example, oil and gas. They get $3 billion a year tax subsidy. Why should we be paying a company that's making billions of dollars, you know, off of us? So we have to close all those loopholes. We have to make sure that everyone pays their fair share in taxes. Everyone from the top billionaire in the world to the average worker on the floor. Pay your fair share. That's how we get programs put into place, and that's how we support them financially. So we got to stop and think. It's our tax dollars that are paying for everything, but everyone should be paying their fair share and not be given billions of dollars in subsidies.
Thanks, Dan. Next, Dave Epp.
As you've heard from the left, their answer is more taxes. No argument with closing loopholes. Absolutely support that. The Conservative response to this deep hole, this additional $500 billion that's been spent by one Prime Minister in 2 years, is growth. We've got to get there, or we're facing higher taxes and or less services. We've got to get our growth rates up over 3%. I know economists say that's not possible. I disagree. Our party disagrees. We've got a fantastic workforce. We've got fantastic entrepreneurs. We need to commercialize what our brain power develops here in Canada and then export it to the world. We can very much do that. Government is there to set that climate for us, for the private sector, to get us out of this hole. We did it in 2007, 2008. We led the G7 from the global recession, and Conservatives can do it again.
Thanks, Dave. Next, Jeremy Hall.
Again, this is to grow our economy, a bigger tax base. I think with new green technologies, new green innovations, new ways to produce, new ways to manufacture, we're at a breaking point now that we can actually come ahead and be the best in the global market. And building a bigger tax base will hopefully lower our taxes in the end.
Thanks, Jeremy. Next, Jason Henry.
Well, I have to agree that we have to close those loopholes and stop allowing our leaders to make sure that their friends and allies benefit when those of us hardworking Canadians are paying the price. We've suffered, and Trudeau and his government have had a chance to make sure they balance the budget. They've had a chance to help out. And when people speak out about those kind of things, Jody Wilson-Raybould as an example, or when we start trying to clamp down on government spending to family and friends, it doesn't go well for us. And what we have to do is make sure that those that have already been benefiting from the system, while the rest of us pay the price, pay their fair share. We must tax the ultra-rich. We must close CEO loopholes, and we must do our best to invest in the working class. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. For our next question, Morena McDonald.
If elected, what would you do to ensure the creation and implementation of a national plan to eradicate poverty and homelessness?
Thanks, Morena. First, Dave Epp.
Homelessness. Homelessness will tie right into one of the 5 pillars in the Conservative plan. It's so important that we've made it one of the 5, and that's a Canada mental health strategy. So much of homelessness is tied to mental health. It's the flip side, the other side of the coin of this physical pandemic we're going through. And so Conservatives will invest through the provinces where the jurisdiction is, also incent employers to add mental health portions to their benefits for their employees. So that would be one major way. Homelessness is, again, a tie to housing supply. And so we talked earlier how we would make more housing available and make it more affordable by removing some of the regulatory barriers. One of them would be removing the tax penalty for owners of rental properties to allow them to reinvest and not face the capital gains tax, investing back into rental properties, increasing the supply of affordable housing for those folks. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. Next, NDP, Jason Henry.
As an Indigenous leader, my inbox is full every day, whether it's on social media, my telephone, my email, with people that are living in multifamily homes or are at or near poverty and homelessness. We have to make sure that we're listening to those people. Top-down approach does not work. Lofty ideas from Ottawa will not solve the problem in Lambton-Kent-Middlesex. We have to make sure that we have the temperature of what is needed here. And that it's different here than in the cities. Homelessness or poverty in rural Ontario is not the same as downtown Toronto or Vancouver. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Next, NDP, Dan Jelanis.
Well, to eliminate homelessness, you need homes or rental apartments. So therefore, we have to invest in producing, as we want to do, 500,000 homes and allow a rental support of $5,000 for people who rent. They've gotten behind because of the pandemic. They haven't been able to pay their rents. We also want to look at a 20% tax on foreign buyers. You know, they come in, quick turnover, take their money and they run. We want to waive the GST and the HST payments on construction. We have a lot of construction companies in this area that would welcome that, and it's an incentive to get out and build more places. We also want to put a $1,500 tax credit on new home buyers. So if you make it easier to build a house and make it easier to purchase the house or rental apartment, and you offer incentives to people, homelessness will be eliminated over a period of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Green Party, Jeremy Hall.
Homelessness is a big issue. It's not just the shortage of houses. It's a big issue with the shortage of work. It is a shortage of houses. A guaranteed livable income, this would give these people a chance to find somewhere to live, to have the respect they need to go out and find that new job. With free tuition, it's a chance for them to get an education and better their careers, and not just for the homeless, but for anybody who's struggling with a lower income job.
Thanks, Jeremy. Next, Liberal Party, Greg Hetherington.
Our housing market is a serious issue right now, that because so many have sold their homes that they were renting out before to those that were using them as apartments, they've now been transferred over to dwellings that people are living in and not renting out. And that's made an issue for those that are looking for apartments, that they can't afford them. We're seeing prices for some people going up $400 to $500 more than they would have to pay for their apartment. We've got to step up as a government and assist those that are in apartments right now that are struggling to pay rent because they just can't afford it with the housing crisis that we have right now. As a small business owner, I've stepped up over and over again, from chairing the United Way campaign to helping rock missions to assisting the homeless on a regular basis. I've got a track record of helping the homeless as a small business owner, and I will do so as your MP. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. For the next question, Zara Belanger-Pepper.
Succession planning and aging land ownership are huge challenges facing the agricultural sector. There are also young entrepreneurs who have passion and could bring new concepts into agriculture, yet are unable to enter this sector due to significant increases in farmland values and increasing costs of equipment. What plans does your party have to ease the transition for family farms, as well as transferring property to the next generation, or open up the sector to a new endeavor of entrepreneurial farmers?
Thanks, Zara. First, Jason Henry.
Well, that's a big question. There was a lot said there. So I think the main part of the question is protecting our farmers and making sure that there's succession planning and land transfers. And interest has been drawn away from many people from farming. Of course, we all live in rural Ontario, and we have many friends in agriculture. I'm not a farmer because my family near London, Ontario, was unable to keep their farm because there wasn't support for the smaller farmers. Support all went to bigger agriculture, and the investments weren't made into small family operations and more to big corporations. We have to make sure that we have equitable investment across all areas of agriculture and keep it valid and up to date. Small farms saved us when we had food shortage during the pandemic. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Next, Greg Hetherington.
Well, agriculture is a big driver for this riding. We look at somewhere between $8 to $10 billion for our economy here in Chatham-Kent-Leamington. It's big business, and we need to look at it as big business. Every time that I drive on number 2 highway and I drive by a farm, I see another $1 million corporation that we need to assist, and we need to make opportunities for young families to own farms. And the Liberal Party will assist our agricultural sector in doing that. I also like the fact that we're working in a green environment as well. And our farmers are great stewards of the land and want to move forward with a different way of farming and technology and a greener future. I support our young entrepreneurial farmers, and we've got to make sure our young families can move on and still purchase and own their family farms and have that opportunity to do it every time that the opportunity arises. Thanks.
Thanks, Greg. Next, Dan Jelanis.
Our farmers feed Canada. Every farm is very important so that we can live a healthy lifestyle. Infrastructure is one of the most important problems facing farmers. If you don't have the proper roads, bridges, to be able to get to their farmland and be able to get to the market with their finished product, then you're not going to have a successful farmer. We have to have incentives to farmers so that young people get involved. Young people want to farm, but they don't have the finances to do it, so we have to have incentives. Now, talking about driving down the highway. Well, I'd love to drive down number 3 highway, but unfortunately, the governments haven't got together, and we can't get from Wheatley to Blenheim because somebody doesn't want to sit down and try and figure out the problem. Well, as an NDP and your city member, I promise you that's going to be one problem I'm going to resolve.
Thanks, Dan. Next, Dave Epp.
Welcome to my life. I'm proud to be from the ag industry, and I understand this. Ag has always been very, very capital intensive. How to address that is to have a strong ag industry where it makes sense to make those investments. Let me tell you what the Liberal government, however, did. Bill C-208, my colleague Larry McGuire brought it through the House of Commons because a family could not transfer their operation to their own children without having more adverse tax consequences than by selling it outside of their own family. The Liberal government voted against that. Fortunately, all of the other opposition parties got together and put that through the House of Commons. Then this Liberal Party defied the will of Parliament and dragged their feet, and at the 11th hour had to be shamed for fair tax treatment of the transfer of farms within a family. It's unbelievable. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Jeremy Hull.
Well, this is a topic that's fairly new to me. I grew up in a small town, and agriculture wasn't exactly second nature to me. But out talking to local farmers and people in that trade, they're having a hard time severing off property for the younger children to start into farming. They want to sever 50 acres just for their son to start a business or their daughter to start into farming themselves, and they can't do it. These are just little issues that need to be solved so our younger generation can come into farming. And then as I explored the agriculture some more, I found out that we had a huge food shortage here in Canada during COVID. Actually, 60% of our food is actually imported. That's something that needs to be changed, and at least a third of that needs to be done here at home. Whether we grow it or we manufacture it or produce it here, this is where we got to start.
Thanks, Jeremy. For our next question, Sarah Molnar.
How would your party address energy transition while balancing environmental and economic concerns? How does that approach benefit Chatham-Kent?
Thanks, Sarah. We'll start back with you, Jeremy.
The Green Party topic. Right now, fossil fuels are one of our main sources of energy and needs to be phased out. It can't be completely erased overnight. We are dependent on it at the moment. But there is new technologies, there's new science, there's new ways of producing, there's new ways of transportation, and they need to be brought in. Definitely as fast as we can, but we can't just cross out fossil fuels right away. Green technology is the future, and as we get there, we will retrain people that are inside the fossil fuel business. These are good paying jobs that are on the line right now. This is a future for us, and it's something we've got to look at and study, and just baby steps along the way, and we'll get there.
Thanks, Jeremy. Next, Dave Epp.
Yes. First of all, the big picture. Canada produces some of the cleanest fossil fuel. We all know that we've got to, over time, transition out of that or away from that over time. But we produce some of the best, so we need to incent liquefied natural gas to replace coal. That's a step in the right direction. More locally to home, Line 5 is critical to not only Michigan, but Ontario and Quebec in delivering, I think it's 43% of Ontario's and over 50% of Quebec's fuel. So we need to work with Enbridge and the Michigan government. They're in mediation right now. They need far more support from our federal government to keep that line open. Manufacturing. The Conservative government will put far more emphasis on hydrogen and EV vehicles locally. How will that help Chatham-Kent? We've got a strong tool and die. We've got a strong manufacturing and that's the word I'm looking for, not prefabbing, but you know what I mean. I've got good friends in that business, and that are suppliers to our automotive sector and our other building sectors. That's a way to go over time.
Thanks, Dave. Next, Jason Henry.
Well, the opportunity is grand here. And as Canada, we can and should be the world leaders in green and renewable energy. We have this amazing land base, and we should be the world leaders. And it's prophesized in my teachings that there'll come a time in the world where the rest of the population will have to turn to Indigenous people to seek advice. We have to consider that every other living organism on this planet is just as equal to us. There are many ways that we can do that, but certainly investing in greener technologies, renewable energy, and things like green hydrogen is not a turnkey solution. We have to do it very carefully, very calculated, and we must involve those that currently work in the fossil fuel industry because they are brilliant and they know what to do to help solve this problem. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jason. Next, Greg Hetherington.
Energy transition is a very key, well, two key words, and climate change and a greener future all tie together nicely, especially where we live today. In Chatham, Enbridge is a huge employer and an economic driver for our economy here. We need to work together with Enbridge, and I've sat down with the governance team to see what their plan is, and they have a good one, how they can transition from a fossil fuel to solar energy. Enbridge just built the largest solar farm in the world. Don't forget, Enbridge also supports wind energy, as does North Kent and South Kent Wind. Supporting those initiatives will give us good, clean energy and help our environment. And we need to work together with Enbridge. Line 5, our government has worked hard to keep it operational and keep it safe. Thanks.
Thanks, Greg. Next, Mr. Jelanis.
The number one issue for voters today is climate change. They're basing their vote on who they're going to support on what's going to be done about climate change. We realize that renewable energy is here today and is the future for us here in Canada. We want wind and solar power. We want to eliminate fossil fuels. Now, it will take a while to eliminate fossil fuels, but we got to make an effort and go there. The Conservatives finally came up with a plan, thank you, that they want to give you money back to buy green products. But the way you do that is you got to buy more gas and oil. So you have to buy the fossil fuels that are causing the problem to make money to be able to buy the green products. There's got to be a better way. And we think as the NDP that we have a better way. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. For our next question, Marina McDonald.
As agriculture is a major contributor to carbon sequestering and renewable fuels, and there are no other viable, cost-effective fuels for drying crops, what is your party's plan for refunding the carbon tax on agricultural use of fossil fuels?
Thanks, Marina. We'll start with Dave Epp.
Bill C-206. Yes, exactly. So the philosophy of the Conservative Party is that personal use, yes, we've put a price on carbon, and whether you're a farmer or whether you're in any other business, you'll be paying a carbon levy into that and be using that for more green initiatives. When it comes to ag and many of our other businesses that compete internationally, we will go lockstep with our trading partners, the US, particularly the EU, when it comes to applying carbon pricing. C-206 attempted to remove or to add an exemption for farm drying fuels, similar to the on-farm fuel, the gas and diesel oil. unfortunately did not make it through the House and was not supported by the Liberal Party. There are no present other alternatives. Farmers are the most innovative beings on this planet, and when there are options, they will innovate because they make their living in the environment in which they live. There's no options. They need an exemption on those fuels now, and when options are available, they will go there.
Thanks, Dave. Next, Jeremy Hall.
Well, to my knowledge, the Green Party has not actually addressed this issue, but it is one that is in our local farm community. So I can give my own personal thoughts on it, which is I don't think farms should be subject to the carbon tax in itself. They have no other way. There's no other way to control this this business. We need our tractors, we need our combines, we need our drying fuels. All this stuff is part of feeding Canada and keeping us healthy, keeping us fed, keeping us alive. There should be an exemption here for that, and this would just be my own personal opinion, and that's how I feel.
Thanks, Jeremy. Next, Dan Jelanis.
Farmers have been getting a break on fuel for years now. It's called green gas, and they don't have to pay a tax on it. I'm not saying that that's the answer to it. I think that maybe we have to look at it again and try to help the farmers out, give them better incentives so that they can supply the food that we need to live here in Canada. The farmer needs better breaks and cost efficiency. So I think that sitting down with the farmers and talking over the needs is a number one step. Let's see what we can do to help the farmer out. That's about it.
Thanks, Dan. Next, Jason Henry.
Well, you know, I'd like to say that farmers were the original stewards of the land, but I believe that Indigenous people were the original stewards of the land here.
But years before.
Yeah, but certainly farmers are stewards of the land, and they have the environment at heart, and they work day in and day out on the land. They understand what is important for our environment because the environment is what drives and feeds their industry, and that industry feeds the rest of us. And it's unfair that they are being taxed at certain levels, and we need to make sure that that carbon tax is focused on the real polluters, the ones that are profiting greatly on that industry and not on the backs of our farmers. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jason. Greg Hetherington.
Born and raised on a farm, I've seen that farmers are stewards of the land and they want to take care of the climate. And it's hard to get around the carbon tax. But what I think does work is giving a farmer a rebate. When we look at trees and trying to maintain their growth across the country, because the benefits that we get from the oxygen that they produce is a great thing. Why don't we do the same for the farmers? When you're growing thousands of acres of corn and soybeans, why don't you get a rebate for allowing you to give us more oxygen? That only makes sense to me. And I would back that kind of thinking to help farmers. We appreciate what you're doing. You're taking away carbon dioxide, you're giving us more oxygen. We appreciate it, and farmers need to be appreciated, and I don't see why we can't come up with a program to give them a rebate.
Thanks, Greg. For our next question, Zara Belanger.
How would your party support the economic development of rural and small-town communities? What specific opportunities do you see for Chatham-Kent?
Thanks, Zara. We'll start with Mr. Henry.
Well, again, it's back to those same principles that we have, and that's investing in people, and that's through healthcare, pharmacare, childcare, affordable housing, investments in EI, and making sure that people are first, not huge corporations, not the ultra-rich, but people. And people often ask me, why did I get involved in politics? And I never got involved in politics. I began volunteering in my community and surrounding communities to help people. And that is what must be at the forefront, is making sure that tax dollars get to people and not huge corporations. That is how we'll help small town Ontario and Lambton-Kent-Middlesex.
Thanks, Jason. Next, Mr. Jelinas.
Again, I have to agree with Mr. Henry. Our tax dollars are being wasted on large corporations. We're giving incentives, $3 billion a year to the gas and oil companies, as I stated before. We have to take those tax dollars and put it into small economies. There's an endless opportunity for small towns. There's an economic development. We have to have a strong infrastructure. I've said that over and over again. And by taking the tax dollars that haven't been paid in the past by rich corporations, we have to take that tax that we're going to apply to them and invest it back into our people. Our people are our most important economic section of Canada. So we have to invest in the future by investing in our people. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Next, Mr. Hetherington.
Well, this really sums up our community. Chatham-Kent-Leamington is huge. It's rural, it's urban, and over the last 35 years, I've done my best to connect the two of them together so that we could understand what each brings to the community. As I said earlier on, agriculture in this community is a big driver, and tying together the urban and rural sectors so that we can work together. Food processing plants that we could bring to this community. We are in the breadbasket of Canada, and we don't take opportunity enough of it. We need a voice that's going to stand up for us in Ottawa, that can market the message, that can connect, so that we know that agriculture works together with the urban sector and creates jobs. It's a big step, and we need a stronger voice to make that happen and give opportunity where it lies.
Thank you, Greg. Next, Mr. Hull.
Investing in our communities. This is where money's got to be. The Greens came up with a great plan, and that was to take some of your federal taxes and give them back to municipalities. That's money they can be used to rebuild their infrastructure, repair water lines, sewers, and hopefully create new jobs out of this. We also need to support young entrepreneurs in these communities. They're the ones, they're our future. They're going to find these new green jobs. They're going to find new ways to build, new ways to produce, new ways to capitalize on manufacturers and businesses that are already there. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Next, Mr. Epp.
On this question, I'm going to largely agree with what's been stated, other than you already have that strong voice in Ottawa. Processing capacity, it's one of the studies we did on the Ag Committee, and we're looking for ways to incent exactly that further value adding to what we can do as a breadbasket, as the breadbasket of Canada right down here. That's already happening. The largest outcome, or one of the largest outcomes from this pandemic, is the value everyone is seeing around internet. By 2025, the Conservative Party will bind this country together with the utility that's become the necessity, just like electricity was 100 years ago, by 2025. Right now, we've got 5 different pots trying to add infrastructure through internet. That will be streamlined and that will be connected. Certainly, the Conservative Party is the party of small business, of competition, of the market. The Liberal Party is the party of big business. We've got to get that CRTC decision reversed so companies like Tech Savvy right here in town have access to cheaper spectrum for their customers. That's part of this whole interlocking of bringing this community forward, both rural and urban.
Thanks, Dave. I'll ask the next question. What is your party view on, and do you personally support Bill C-71, the assault weapons bill? We'll start with Conservative Dave Epp.
Conservative Party has made it very, very clear. We will repeal Bill C-71. We will also review all of the classification of firearms and make it into a streamlined, simple system. And so that will, over time, take a look at the OIC that was put in May 2020. The Conservative government will also focus this whole issue where it should be focused, not on legal, law-abiding firearms owners, but rather on our smuggled handguns, on our border issues and where they come in, on the opioid crisis that is being funded, along with the import of small handguns, by our illegal marijuana grow-ops. That's all connected. That's not very well known. We will focus on violence, we will focus on crime, and the handguns, not on legal firearms owners.
Thanks, Dave. Next, Green Party, Jeremy Hull.
This topic's pretty close to me, and it isn't. We need more restrictions on firearms. It isn't. We need to make, more guns banned across this country. We have good legal home owners of these firearms. What we got to do is more laws, but tighter restrictions, as in criminal charges. If you commit a crime with a weapon, there should be a severe punishment for that. It's not the legal owners of these guns. It is the smuggling of handguns into this country. It's people who don't properly own their guns. They're not responsible users. But we shouldn't be penalizing, owners of these guns that are meeting the regulations and are holding their guns legally. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Next, Dan Jelinas.
Well, you turn on the news at night and you see this many people have been shot and killed, gangs fighting against each other, killing each other. And then you have to realize that I'm not watching American news, I'm watching Canadian news. Now, we're not even close to the way the killings take place in the United States, but we are starting to grow. And as a political party in Canada, the NDP will support Bill 71, the assault weapons bill. And the reason is we want to keep assault weapons and illegal weapons off the streets. Now, I'm not saying hunters can't have their guns and gun enthusiasts can't have it. It's got to be legal. But there's just too many deaths taking place. I don't want this country to turn into the United States as far as the killings that are taking place. I want to be able to walk down the street with my family and grandchildren and feel safe. So we do support C-71.
Thanks, Dan. Next, NDP, Jason Henry.
Well, Mr. Jelinas is correct. Our party leader has spoken out in the support of Bill 71. As a hunter and an avid person out on the land, utilizing firearms in a safe way, as a registered and licensed gun owner, I feel that it's highly inappropriate for the big political parties to play politics and fear-mongering around automatic firepower. The issue is not legal gun owners. Automatic weapons are already illegal in this country and restricted. High-powered rifles are much more dangerous, but we didn't go after that. What the problem is that we're fear-mongering. We need to make sure that we're targeting criminal activity, focus our funds towards border activity and those guns coming in. All this law has done is taken firearms out of the hands of legal gun owners and maybe driven those guns into the black market to support criminal activity. We have to make sure that we're also going after trauma, not addictions, not cannabis, but trauma, to make sure people aren't driven to take mass shootings. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Next, Liberal Party, Greg Hetherington.
I support hunters and I support farmers, but our communities should be safe and peaceful places to live and raise children. But yes, American-style gun violence is rising. In 2019 alone, we saw the rate of firearm-related offenses rise for the 5th straight year, and the homicide rate was the highest in a decade. 40% homicides involving firearms is not acceptable. And that's why in May of last year, we took action to put a ban on the use, sale, and the import of those assault weapons. Certain weapons are needed for hunting and farming, for the protection of their herd. And at the same time, we are investing in prevention efforts and providing $250 million for municipalities. We need to take steps in the right direction to keep our families safe and still assist those that like to use firearms for the proper purposes. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. That's all the time we have for questions today. The candidates will now be given 1 minute each to summarize, and we'll start with Jason Henry.
Well, thank you all for taking your time today to tune in and get informed. And as I stated at the onset of this, that, we can all be here for promises, but realistically, what we need to consider as voters in our riding is who will be a leader and who will be a voice for you. Please don't let people tell you how to vote. Make your own decision and consider who will be the voice for the youth, who will be the voice for the future, who will bring true change to Lambton-Kent-Middlesex. Between elections, we all sit around coffee tables, well, many of us do, and not in the pandemic, but we complain about the state of the government. And yet we go back to the polls year after year and vote the same way. So my challenge to you this election is be informed, understand the parties, understand the candidates, and vote for who you believe will be your leader in Ottawa. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Henry. I'd also like to thank you for your participation today. We appreciate it. Next, Jeremy Hull.
I'd like to thank the Chamber, fellow candidates here today. Let me start by saying, as you notice, I'm probably not the best talker in the crowd, but I do have one passion, and that is serving people. One thing I'm very good at is listening and taking concerns forward, finding solutions, cost-effective problem solving. But public speaking, is not one of my great strengths. I would take every concern to Ottawa. I am a good voice for people, and I do understand problems about the community. So I guess on this election day, I'm going to have to agree with Jason here, is you're going to vote who's going to do the best job for you in Parliament. It's not the party you're voting. It's the actual person that you're sending there to represent you. They're taking your voice, your complaints, your problems, your wishes up there. So vote who you want to be your voice in Ottawa this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. We appreciate your messages and appreciate your participation. Next, Greg Hetherington.
Thanks to the Chamber and thanks to the candidates. We need a rep who will show up for you, listen to you, work for you, and fight for you. I'm tired of politicians in Vancouver and Toronto who don't have a clue where Chatham-Kent-Leamington is. We need a voice that's passionate about agriculture, can help bring forward opportunities in the ag sector, tie them into small business so that we can all benefit with jobs and a growing economy. We need a government that believes in the future and believes in climate change, continues to support the vaccine, supports not just with words, but helping families and childcare, save you money, help seniors stay in their home, receive a quality care that they deserve in long-term care facilities. But most important, gives you choices. I'm running to bring a local action to Chatham-Kent-Leamington. We need a rep that steps up every day, not just during an election. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for your time, Greg. We appreciate your participation. Next, Dave Epp.
Thanks to the Chamber, thanks to my fellow candidates. Chatham-Kent-Leamington's present voice in Ottawa will be representing the National Conservative Party in the National Agricultural Debate this afternoon to be aired this evening. So trust me, Canada knows where Chatham-Kent-Leamington is. This election is a necessary one, but nevertheless, Justin Trudeau wants you to make a choice. With Conservatives, you're going to get Canada's recovery plan. It's going to secure jobs, health, and Canada's economic future. So first, secure jobs, recover the 1 million lost within 1 year during the pandemic. Secure accountability. We haven't even talked about the ethical scandals that have rocked this government. Secure mental health through funding our provinces and incenting employers to add mental health to employee benefit plans. Secure our country so we're never unprepared for a crisis again, and secure Canada's economy by balancing our books over a decade. Who do you trust to get us out of this recession and manage our economy safely? Thank you, folks, for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Epp. We appreciate your participation today. Last, Dan Jelinas.
Trust. That's a big word. I think everyone recognizes for the last many, many years when we've gone from conservative to liberal, liberal to conservative, that promises are made but never kept. They would rather tell you the story you want to hear, get elected, and then turn their back on you, you who voted for the liberal or the conservative. Time has come that we have to we have to recognize that promises made are not promises kept. The NDP have made promises in provincial government and kept them. They talk about the increase to 75% for wage subsidies. And they talk about the $2,000 that the Liberals paid to workers. That was forced because we had the power as the NDP. We forced the Liberals to accept that. And that's why you've got that money. They would rather argue about conversion therapy and keeping it going and promise you that we're going to give you pharmacare and then vote against it. So if you want the promises kept, vote NDP this election. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Jelinek. We appreciate your participation today. To close, I'd like to thank the candidates and our viewing audience for your participation and interest today. On behalf of our organizers and everyone, we encourage you to take an active role in learning about the issues of this election. Educate yourself by attending the various candidate forums and by following the local media and social media sources. Your TV will be rebroadcasting this event through to elections for your viewing convenience. The forum will also continue to be profiled on the Y Connect and Chatham-Kent Chamber of Commerce Facebook pages. I'd also like to give special thanks to the municipality of Chatham-Kent for their assistance with our Studio One facilities and to Your TV for their broadcast and media support. On behalf of the Y Connect Group, Chatham-Kent to the Power of Young People, and the Chatham-Kent Chamber of Commerce, I remind you to attend your voting station on Monday, September 20th, or choose an advance option, but please vote. It is important to exercise your right and to vote wisely. I wish everyone a good day and encourage everyone to stay safe and stay healthy.